Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg, the myth, the legend. Welcome back to Hangin' with Mangg. And today we're playing some Breath of the Wild on Master Mode. I have been... Well, I haven't been playing this. I just needed something to play. But I have been meaning to play this. Because I haven't played through Master Mode, and it's been a fat minute since I've played through Breath of the Wild, and so that's not what I wanted. I don't remember any of the controls. Anyways, we're not really here to talk about Breath of the Wild. We're here to talk about all sorts of stuff. This week was AGDQ 2019. And I always like to tune in to the GDQs. It's just a fun event most of the time. I mean, sometimes, some years have been a little off. There was a period where I think they were like overly concerned, no fun allowed type thing. Everything's just needs to be super family friendly and blah blah blah, but they're in a good place right now, and AGDQ 2019 was quite a bit of fun. You know, it opened with a good Hollow Knight run, and there was a lot of impressive shit going down. It had just good atmosphere. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I donated, all that good shit. It just seems like a cool community that I'd like to be part of, but since I have no interest in speedrunning or leaving my house, it just doesn't work. But it is cool to tune in. And so yeah, they ended with a Super Metroid reverse boss order run, which was pretty cool. I think they've done it before, but it was good. It was a good closer. I mean, they used to close with, like, you know, a 9-hour RPG run, and I think they realized that that's not a good way to close the event. It's not very hype most of the time, except for, like, the final boss, but closing with Super Metroid, I think, is a good way to go, and, yeah, it was cool. I'd like to see a Super Metroid randomizer run in the future. And maybe even like that Link to the Past Super Metroid randomizer. That would be pretty sweet. Because randomizers are becoming more and more popular. They're very cool. You know, new, fresh concept that you just couldn't do with a traditional, you know, cartridge. But with all the ROM nonsense going on, it's something you can do that's pretty sweet. And bingo races are also becoming more popular. It's just something different to mix up the whole speedrunning concept. And so Ziggy brought up the concept, the possibility of us... Well, actually, he mentioned it specifically in relation to him and his wife doing it. I just sort of stole the concept and I wanted to get involved. but a Skyrim race, a Skyrim bingo race. So if you don't know, a bingo race is basically you have like a bingo sheet. So, you know, it's like a 5x5 grid. And in each square is like an objective within the game. So I think for like Super Mario 64, it's like collect, one of them could be like collect 120 coins in a single level or something like that. And that's really tricky for speedrunners because they're so used to mapping out very specific routes. And so they might have to do things that normally they would never do in a run. But they have to do it quickly, and, you know, it's like on-the-fly routing and all that kind of stuff. So it's cool. And so, yeah, so I thought, like, that would be pretty cool to have, like, a LAN party where you used to have, like, a bunch of TVs set up, and you have, like, computers, PS4s, Switches, whatever. You know, they're all running Skyrim Special Edition. And you get a bunch of people together, and you all just race through Skyrim doing, like, a bingo. So you don't have to, like... You don't necessarily have to, like, beat the game. I mean, that might be on the bingo sheet. Maybe. Because none of us are, like, speedrunners. You know, none of us really do any of that, but everyone is familiar with Skyrim. Like, almost, pretty much every one of my friends has played Skyrim. So, it's a game that everyone's familiar with, and it would just be sort of a casual, fun race. I think it would be a pretty cool LAN party. Because there aren't that many games that all of my friends are familiar with and would have fun doing a race. Like a Super Metroid race, that wouldn't work. I think really I would be the only one that's ever even beaten the game. So, yeah. I think it would be a pretty cool concept. I want to organize it. I want to get it together. Because I also want to do later this year a LAN party for the WoW Classic launch. Because a bunch of us are going to be playing that, so I think it would be cool to all start together and just spend a weekend leveling together and hanging out, and like back in the day in high school and stuff like that. It would be cool. So yeah, we'll see about all that. But anyways, this week on this channel, we of course had Doom 2016. And that's going to be continuing on for a little bit. Clearly, I've forgotten all the controls of this game. What was I talking about? Doom 2016, yes. And so that'll plug along. Nothing really to say about that. And of course we had Final Fantasy 12. Okay. Which is actually... Now I don't remember. I can't remember if I thought it was fairly short or fairly long. I don't remember. Maybe I can check. Hold on. Hold on. I'm gonna check for you. It's fairly short, I suppose. Compared to 13, it's a little bit shorter. So we are already on like part 14 or something like that. I think 14. And that's out of 19. So we really only have like 5 more videos or something like that to go for Final Fantasy 12. So that, of course, won't finish this week, but definitely the following week. We'll be done with 12 and move on to 13. And then there aren't that many mainline Final Fantasies to go. Pretty wild stuff, considering how long it took me to go through the whole Zelda series. Final Fantasy has been clipping along at a good pace. So yeah, Final Fantasy, Doom, continuing along. After that, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I don't have any set plans at this point. There was one game that I saw that was recommended, and people were like, "Yeah, this is a really good like Japanese detective game." I don't remember what it was called. It started with like a number. Somebody probably knows what I'm talking about. And I was like, "Oh, this could be pretty fun to play through, you know, short little game." So maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, for now, Doom and Final Fantasy 12. Coming out soon is, of course, Resident Evil 2. And Kingdom Hearts 3. So I'm getting Kingdom Hearts 3, although I'm not Let's Playing it. I'm passing on Resident Evil 2, the remake, for now. I think it probably is a pretty quality game. But I just never find myself that excited about playing a horror game. Like, maybe, you know, I play through it and I'm like, that was pretty good. But I'm never that excited, because it's always just, I don't know. I'm just a big pansy ass, really. I'll watch any horror movie you can throw at me, but horror games, they don't thrill me in the way I like to be thrilled. So, I don't know. You know, I'm debating at some point in the future doing a full series playthrough of the Resident Evil series. But that doesn't exactly thrill me that much either. I'd much rather do like a playthrough of the Mother series or the Metal Gear series. But I really don't want to discuss or conceptualize or anything full series playthroughs at this point, because I have 3 that are still cooking, and I need to sort of wrap those up. Because my hard drive is just, it's like full. It's like, oh, I have to delete stuff to make room on my hard drive. I can't. It all needs to be uploaded. So, yeah, I'm just cooling it on that. So yeah, otherwise, you know, barring nothing else, after Doom, I'll just slide into Metroid, I think. If we're actually... The thing is, I don't want 2 RPG series to go on at the same time. So if we're going chronologically, really it should be Ultima. But I think Ultima's going to have to wait until Final Fantasy's over. And then after Ultima, I have the Dragon Quest series. It's just... Those videos are going to be sitting on my hard drive for decades. I don't know what I was thinking. But, so after Doom, I could do Metroid. And then after Final Fantasy, I can do Ultima, but Final Fantasy is going to last a while because, like I said, there's all the tactics games now I have to upload, so that's 3 more full-length LPs. So on and so forth. But anyways, things will keep ticking by. Oh, God. This week, on the Exploring series, we had the Pattern Screamers video. Which, of course, you know, I was fretting all about, and it's like, I don't know what I'm talking about, this doesn't make any sense, this video is gonna suck, and blah, blah, blah. And, of course, it turned out perfectly fine, everyone seems to like it, and it's like, oh, this makes sense, and oh, I understand it all now, blah, blah, blah. And I was really worried that I didn't understand it, but the guy who wrote, like, the declassified summary on SCP Declassified subreddit, the guy that wrote the summary for Pattern Screamers on there, he's in one of the Discords I'm in, and he complimented me on how well, like, researched and summarized my Pattern Screamers video was. So I was like, okay, you know, if I've got his approval, then, alright, it's all golden. It's all golden at this point. So I was happy with that. You know, not like a massively successful video, because unless you make a video about, like, the big 5 SCPs or something like that, you know, which that's part of what bothers me about, SCP Illustrated, who, like, you know, they are making, like, you know, all these unique illustrations of the SCP universe and specific SCP situations. And it's like, there's so many that need, like, cool illustrations that don't have it. And they just keep making videos on, like, SCP-682 and 106 and 96. And it's just like, these videos, of course, get hundreds of thousands of views, because, you know, 682 is, you know, it's just he's just the king of the SCP community. Everyone's familiar with it, and everyone is just in that stupid comic book mentality of, oh, but who could beat this, and what if you put this against this, and look at all these versus battles. And that's pretty much what SCP Illustrated is doing most of the time, is just versus battles. And it's just like, and I see their next video is going to be on SCP-3008, you know, the IKEA, and it's just like, oh, well, I guess if I catered my channel specifically to get the most views possible, sure, I'd probably be doing a little bit better. But this is a waste of your format as far as I'm concerned. A waste of your illustrations. Maybe it's easier, because, you know, if you just keep making all these videos on 682, you know, you can just reuse your drawings all the time of 682. But, I don't know. It just seems so shallow. It's not like a jealousy issue, because really their channel's not doing that much better than mine. Like, maybe their numbers are slightly higher per month than mine, but they are behind me on subscribers. It's not like I'm jealous and concerned and all this. It's just like, you can do better. You can do better than this, just this catering to this meme-tastic crowd of SCP bandwagoners. Anyways, not to harp on a single channel like that.
People thought it wise to utilize their technological prowess to ensure the safety of
anyways.
should calamity return.
But the Pattern Screamer video was good. I was happy with it. Overall, I'm happy with how it turned out and how the reaction was. It's probably like the most abstract video I'll ever do, or you know, at least up there. And so it's like, alright, you know, at this point, if I can do Norse mythology, Celtic mythology, the timeline of Elder Scrolls, Cthulhu Mythos in Bloodborne, Pattern Screamers in the SCP universe, I feel like I can pretty much summarize anything at this point. So all these videos really sort of help build my my self-confidence as an explainer, as an explorer. So, you know, I put up the polls this week. The polls went up to decide a new series, and it's just like, you know, whatever happens, it's gonna be fine. I'm not too worried. You know, Dark Souls was an option, a leading option, and people were like, "Oh man, you know, if you're gonna do Dark Souls, you are in for that is a whole ball of worms. You know, it's so convoluted and all blah blah blah." It's like, pfft, whatever. I just did fucking Pattern Screamers. Give me some credit. And so you get the usual gamut of people saying, "Oh, don't vote for this. So many channels do this. Vote for this instead." And it's like, okay. Pretty much there's so many channels for almost everything. SCP was really almost the exception. There's really almost no other channel for SCP that does what I do. Not nearly on the same level of popularity as my channel. Which is part of why it sort of got a lot of views. And so, you know, Dark Souls is, of course, dominated by a single channel. I don't know if any franchise is so dominated in, like, the YouTube lore department as Dark Souls with Vadi Vidya. Like, because anytime anybody mentions Dark Souls lore or something like that, Vadi gets mentioned, and no one else. As far as my recollection, no other channel gets mentioned. It's always Vadi, with fairly good reason. I mean, Vadi does put together very good videos, almost always. And Vadi has been a big inspiration for the Exploring series. I've been a fan of his for years. And watched pretty much every video. And so personally, I wouldn't pick Dark Souls myself, just because I'm such a fan of Vadi. And I don't really think I could do a better job than him. You know, like, looking at, like, the Elder Scrolls series, there were other lore channels when I started doing that. But, you know, I thought, like, man, I could probably do a better job than them. I don't know if I can do a better job than Vadi. Maybe. It's gonna be... I'm gonna go for a slightly different approach. Better is gonna be subjective, of course, but we'll see. But, as it turns out, that might have to wait a while, because the options on the first poll were like Dark Souls, Fallout, Warcraft, Dune, The Witcher, probably something else I'm forgetting. And and I decided to put up the second poll today before I did this stream, just because I wanted to talk about it. And so in the second poll we have Dark Souls, The Witcher, Fallout, Warhammer 40k, which it might be up there for, like, series that has been on the most polls. Other than maybe Warcraft, because I just put it on there every time manually. But, Legend of Zelda and Dungeons & Dragons. And I was surprised that Dungeons & Dragons got enough upvotes in the comment section to make it to the second poll. Like, Warhammer got the most upvotes. I think D&D was either second or third. I think second, but... once the second poll went live, Dark Souls and Dungeons & Dragons were, like, neck and neck for a while. A while being, like, an hour. And now Dungeons & Dragons has overtaken Dark Souls and has the lead by, like, 40 votes or something like that. It's not a tiny lead. So chances are it's going to be Dungeons & Dragons. I'm mentally preparing now for Dungeons & Dragons to be the next series. Which is sort of serendipitous, because I just recently started playing Dungeons & Dragons again, or DMing it. And, you know, we haven't touched Dungeons & Dragons in a couple years. 2.5 years or something like that. So, yeah, I would have never really guessed. But Dungeons & Dragons is becoming increasingly popular among the masses. Now, you can never really tell exactly how my demographics are and how they work. Because the people following my channel closely... You know, it depends on the most recent series. So right now we have a lot of SCP people voting, which skews younger. So maybe the younger crowd is more interested in D&D than anything else, which is awesome, to be honest. That's a lot of incoming D&D fans, which is very cool. And so there are definitely some that would scoff at the idea of a D&D lore series, because it's so, you know, Dungeons and Dragons, you know, you just make your own world and you play in your own world. You know, how are you going to do lore on that? But of course there are established settings, published books have been written, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people do play in these established settings. They don't make their own world. And more than that, though, most people do not make their own monsters. You know, the grand majority of Dungeons & Dragons players just use whatever's in the monster manual. And so that's primarily what I'll be focusing on, is going to be sort of a lore series looking at all the different monsters and races and things like that, and discussing them, describing them, and talking about their habitats, their behaviors, and just sort of taking a look at all these different monsters that make up the Dungeons & Dragons universe. Because that's really the common link between everyone's D&D campaign, for the most part, is, you know, you're gonna be looking through this monster manual. You're gonna have orcs, you're gonna have goblins, you're gonna have, I mean, not everyone uses every monster in the monster manual, of course not, but you are familiar with mind flayers and beholders and the demons and the devils and aboleths and the different giants and the different all sorts of stuff. I mean, the monster manual is big, and there's been a number of monster manuals. So specifically, very specifically, this D&D series will be focused around 5th edition. Because people that are going to YouTube to look for D&D content are most likely playing 5th edition D&D. And it would be foolish of me to focus on any other edition. So I'll be mainly using like the 5th edition monster manual. But I will be backing it up with, you know, I'll be using that as the basis, but I'll be looking at other books and resources and stuff throughout the years to find all sorts of different unique information about different races and so on and so forth. Yeah, okay. Shit. Yeah, do you want me to, like... My farming hoe broke. So most of the series is just going to be like an A to Z bestiary, looking at all the different monsters and races, and some monsters will deserve their own video, like demons. That'll all be one video, whereas others it'll be like 3 different monster groups lumped into one video. And so that'll be most of the series, but I'll also be looking a bit at the Forgotten Realms, and maybe there'll be a video on, like, Neverwinter or something, or I really don't know all the specific timelines of events, and I will definitely be looking at what people are requesting to see videos on. So it's gonna be a little bit different. Oh, is this... Do they want me to parry this? I don't remember what they wanted me to do. Damn it. Oh, charge attack. Okay. There we go. What was I talking about? All right, D&D. So it's gonna be a little different. It's gonna be interesting. It could be... It's one of those series where I feel like it could be massively popular. Like, no one else has really done this, and yet everyone wants it but doesn't really realize that they want it, and they're like, it could be really popular. Or it could be like, who the fuck, why would I watch this? Who cares? I don't know. I don't know. So, it could go in any direction, but... You know, I'm a big fan of, well, to say I'm a big fan of Dungeons & Dragons is a little disingenuous, but I'm a big fan of role-playing games. And so for this series to maybe propel interest in Dungeons & Dragons and role-playing games in general, that would be really awesome. That would be really awesome. So just for that alone, I think it's worth doing. But you never know. Dark Souls could overtake it, and this could all be a moot discussion. And I'm sure at some point... No, I don't think Dark Souls is going to overtake. It's now almost 90 votes behind Dungeons & Dragons. But it is close, and I think eventually I will have to do Dark Souls, and that's going to be a little interesting. Because... I'm basically going to be like the student trying to overtake the master. I'm competing with Vadi. We'll see. We'll see how that goes when I eventually do it. But D&D will be interesting. Of course, SCP stuff is going to continue every week for a good while. There's a lot of topics I still need to discuss. This week, I worked on a video about 2935, which is Oh Death, which is another DJ Cactus one, who's a great author. Pretty interesting exploratory one, involving an alternate dimension where everything just suddenly died. Just everything in existence just suddenly dropped dead. And, you know, it's interesting because it's kind of like SCP-354, where you're left without really any specific answer about what happened. It's left to your imagination for the most part. But it's good. I think, you know, it's good cosmic horror. So I enjoyed it. And for the video, you know, I got to use all sorts of abandoned locations and empty cities and all that kind of good stuff. Basically, a lot of reused stuff from the SCP-093 video, the Red Sea disc or whatever. But yeah, I think it was a pretty good video. I was happy with it. It's one of those easy videos where it's a single SCP. It was a nice break from the pattern screamers. And so next week, I'll be working on a video on all sorts of beneficial SCPs. So these are SCPs that are just innately, inherently good and beneficial. You know, there are plenty of SCPs that can be used beneficially by the Foundation, but mostly that involves, like, weaponizing them in some way against their enemies. So this video will specifically focus on stuff that's just like, there's really no way to take this other than just to use them beneficially. Like SCP-500, which is just like this magic pill that can cure any disease or ailment or something like that. Stuff like that. So that should be a pretty interesting video. Look at a very different side of the SCP universe after I've covered so many horrible things. And that's that. That's the plan. So I'm also planning to do a I'm planning to do a Q&A, a live Q&A again. I thought that was pretty fun, and I think I'll do it after I announce that D&D is the winner. Or whatever the winner might be. I'm not saying specifically. But, you know, after I announce the winner, I can do a live Q&A and sort of discuss the next series and stuff. Because, I mean, it's going to be Dark Souls or D&D, and I'm familiar with both, so I can talk about them. But live Q&As are fun. I think we have to go get that cup. That cup head. Yeah. That is the plan. This week, well, I want to talk about a lot of Mangg. We're already 40 minutes in, so I'm gonna have to summarize fairly quickly, but I've been working on an audiobook. I don't know if I'm not like under a legal contract or anything. I'm sure I can talk about it, but it's a work in progress. But if you don't know, my good pal Ziggy... Oh, there's a barrier up there. My good pal Ziggy recently, this past year, published his first book. I'm sure I talked about this at some point. But it's sort of a novella. It's somewhere between a short story and a novella, something like that. And it's a Lovecraftian horror piece that's based in a local town here in Wisconsin, so it's sort of historical Lovecraftian fiction. And so, yeah, he got it published through a small up-and-coming publishing company local here, and when he got it published, I was like, you know, I offered to do the audiobook for him. Because I am a professional narrator, don't you know? And the publishing company that he went with, they're fairly new. They don't have any audiobooks. They've never done one. And so this would be their first audiobook. And so it took a while, but now we're finally working on it. And so I've been reading the chapters and shipping them off to Ziggy, who's doing the editing. That was my deal. I was like, you know what, I'll do all the narration for you. I'll read it all, but I don't really want to edit because I really dislike editing. I do it enough. And so he agreed, and we've got a few chapters in so far. We're close to the halfway point of being done with it. It's pretty interesting. I don't know how well the whole thing is going to turn out. I don't know how people really like my voice, especially like my character voices. You know, like if you people that have been watching my Final Fantasy playthroughs, you're probably familiar with my my character voices at this point. I didn't want to go overboard with any character, and so things sort of blend together. I don't know how well it'll all turn out, but that's definitely a skill I have yet to work on. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I found out that, like, there's a site where people just submit, like, their books in order to find narrators for the audiobooks, and there's, like, I mean, you have no idea how many books there are in existence that you've never heard of. There's so many people trying to be authors nowadays. And, you know, with all the self-publishing and all that sort of stuff. But these people are not narrators. And at least they have the foresight to realize that. So these people are always looking for audiobook narrators. And apparently you can sort of make a living doing that. So, you know, if the whole YouTube thing crashes eventually, which I'm sure it will, you know, maybe I can just do that. I can just narrate all sorts of random audiobooks and get paid up front with no royalty deal or anything like that, because that would be pretty questionable. But yeah, so that's been going good. I don't know when that'll be done, but I'm sure I will let you know if you want to hear more of my voice. Anyways, let me talk about Mangg and then real quick. Try to be quick. So, Stars Without Number. We were on this planet, New Avalon, and that ship had just come crashing down. The terrorists had tried to kamikaze and blow us all up, but they failed. And so we went in, we did a diving mission to try and find the transponder and other supplies and things like that. We found the transponder, we hacked it, we changed all the data and the coordinates and stuff, and we had Phil's character start working on some like homemade rocket so we can shoot it off into space. He was not there last time, so we just had his character do something. And we've been making deals with this nearby planet populated by some alien species, and they are always looking for like parts and components and technology and all that kind of stuff. They prefer that to credits. So we made a deal that they could come in and salvage this crashed ship in exchange for supplies and like prefabricated homes and blah blah blah. And they were happy to do that. Oh my god, look at that pop-in. What the fuck, Nintendo? And so we decided we have to... Oh, also we decided, I told everyone, I told all the colonists, like, look, we're not going to lead you. You have to, you know, stand on your own 2 feet now and appoint your own leader and take care of yourselves. You know, we'll get you guys started, but we're not your leaders. And so they started the political process, and it seems that a young individual by the name of Gulk is is in the lead for the elections. So that's great. So we headed on. We headed to Winter Creek, the nearby town, in order to find this scientist that's studying this zombie disease. And we arrive in town and we find it completely just desolate and like abandoned. Nobody is in sight and everything's boarded up, and it's like, oh, this is nice. And we go to the address where this woman is supposed to be, and we find that her and this other guy are in the basement, and they are studying the zombies. And the whole town has been pretty much wiped out by zombies. Great. And so she informs us that she believes that this whole zombie infection is caused not, like, naturally, of course, but it seems to be caused by some type of alien artifact located on the planet. And somebody is controlling it. Some sort of secret cabal is controlling this artifact and causing these outbreaks to occur. And so I'm like, okay, well, you know, where do you think this artifact is? And she doesn't know. She has no idea. Not really. She thinks it's somewhere near the other town, but she's not sure. And she's like, well, you'll have to just, you know, ask around and see what you can find out. And I'm like, that's fucking terrible. You're a scientist? That's your best guess, is ask around? Like, come on, we can be more scientific with this. You know, can't you do, like, spectroanalysis or something and find, you know, traces of energy or signals or something, you know, anything. And she's like, well, I don't have the equipment. And I'm like, well, if you did, you know, if you did have this equipment. And so she gives me a list of what she would need. And I was prepared to talk to the aliens to see if we could get it from them. But it turns out that our ship is equipped with pretty much exactly what she needs. And so we're like, okay, you're coming with... Oh, fucking rain. I remember this shit. And I'm like, all right, you're coming with us. You're going to get on the ship, and you're going to find this for us. And, of course, there are zombies everywhere in this city, and we have to get all the way back to our ATV and back to our ship. So I give her Thomas's power suit, because he doesn't really need it. He's a robot. He's not going to get infected. So she puts on the power suit. We go outside, and we find some zombie, like, crawling around our ATV. And I get a flash from my precognition that shows me groups of zombies just all around us in the alleys and in the buildings and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, you know, no guns. Don't make any noise. And so... Thomas, like, takes Mert's, like, electric power spear and throws it at the zombie, causing it to explode, which was pretty sweet. And, I don't remember exactly what happened. Some noise caused all the zombies to converge, and we climbed onto the ATV, and we... You know, we're in power armor, so there's really no threat whatsoever. We just shot a bunch of zombies, and we drove off. We got to the ship, and we flew off into the sky. She did her thing on the computers, and she said, okay, this alien artifact is apparently somewhere directly beneath Beaver City. Which is, of course, you know, a big play on Raccoon City. But, she couldn't really tell where. She couldn't pinpoint it exactly. It's somewhere beneath the city. And I'm like, fuck it. Okay. It turns out we're going to have to ask somebody. Somebody's got to know. But how do you find a cultist or something specifically in this big city? You know, how am I going to track this down? It's like, well, if there is a secret cabal working underneath the city... Why am I going that way? The person most likely to know something is going to be the mayor. He's going to know something. Whether or not he's involved is a different thing entirely, but he's going to know something. Damn it. So, we have to talk to the mayor. And it's like, okay, well, we can go through the legal channels. And we could talk to the mayor in his office and arrange a meeting and all this sort of stuff. Or we can do it much cooler and quicker. You know, we're the ones that are in power here. This is tech level 3, so we have the more advanced technology. I'm a psychic. You know, we're capable. And... to be perfectly honest, I was getting pretty fed up with this fucking planet. Because I thought it was just going to be this nice paradise, and it turns out it's a real shithole. And so it's like, I'm going to kidnap this mayor. And if he's completely innocent, then that's my bad. You know, if he's completely... Actually, to be honest, if he's completely unaware, then that's just fucked up on its own. That he's just completely ignorant of this horrible atrocity that these... cultists or whatever are committing right underneath his streets. That's fucked up on its own. If he's complicit, then I don't mind kidnapping him and throwing him out of my ship. If he knows about it and he's trying to fight it, then okay, my bad. My bad. But that's really the least likely. So I'm like, alright, how do we kidnap this guy? Well, let's do it kind of like Batman, because that's cool. So, we're going to float the ship, hover the ship down near his mansion, his house. We're going to jump down with the winch cables, burst through his window, grab him, and get yanked out of there. That's what we're going to do. And I contemplated using teleportation, but I really don't have enough effort to do all these long-range jumps with other people, and it just, yeah, I didn't want to do it. I could have done it if I waited another night, but I'm trying to do this as quickly as possible, because these people are making zombies, man, and I got colonists to worry about. Because I had that vision of my town just being overrun with zombified people, and it's like, I can't let that come to pass. So, as soon as we sort of start hovering down towards the city, of course, we get spotlights on us, and helicopters start coming down, approaching us, and I'm like, alright, let's just do this fucking quick. So, Mert and I, like, jumped off the ship with the winch cables. We burst in the room. He grabs the guy, and I'm like, alright, pull us up. And we get yanked out of there, and we get winched back in, and we fly away. And it was like a perfect, simple plan. Like, the easiest kidnapping we've ever done. So that was good. So we tie the guy up in the ship, and start asking him questions. He doesn't seem like he wants to tell us, so I blow off one of his fingers. And he becomes much more compliant. Who knew? And so he tells us exactly where these guys are located. There's an elevator inside, like, a bar that goes down underground. And that's where their secret lair is with the alien artifact or whatever. But he says he's never been down there. The others wanted to keep this guy alive as leverage. In my mind... Okay, well, thinking as a character, I wanted this fucker dead, because this guy he's complicit, he knows about all this, he lets it happen, he's a piece of shit, and I'm gonna throw him out the airlock. As a player, I thought, this is not really leverage. These guys have all the power, they control this alien artifact, and they operate, with immunity underneath this guy's city without him doing anything. And what's more, he's apparently not even allowed to go down into their facility. The chances of him being actual leverage with this group is incredibly minute. So, between those two aspects of my character thinking and my player thinking, I threw him out the airlock. So, what was I talking about? I should probably stop playing. Not that I've really been doing much, but... Okay. So... We threw him out the airlock, and we're like, okay, they're under this bar, through an elevator, down an elevator, underground. How do we get at them? You know, we don't have any drilling tools. I can't, like, teleport down there. Ziggy really made sure that this was, like, you know, as secure as possible. And when it's as secure as possible, you have two choices. You can use deception and try to bluff your way in, or you can go guns blazing. And normally, you know, I don't like guns blazing because I think it's just the cheap way out. But in this case, Thomas suggested it, and I was like, yeah, I can't really argue. Deception just wouldn't work. We wouldn't get all in. It would be difficult. Guns blazing is really the best option here. We outgun them. You know, we have more advanced technology, most likely. I'm a psychic. We've got explosives. It's just going to work. So, and we've got power armor. I'm like, all right, let's go guns blazing. So we waited a night, because I wanted to refuel my effort. We waited a night. The next night comes, and I'm like, all right, let's just do it. And so, because I can teleport other people now, we just sort of came within like 10 kilometers of this building, of this bar, and I just teleported all of us onto the rooftop. And they were like, okay, how do we get into this bar now? And I'm like, fuck it, we're in power armor. Let's just crash through the fucking roof. So we all jumped simultaneously. We crashed through the roof. We killed like 3 or 4 people that were underneath us. I'm gonna assume they were cultists, but, you know, maybe not. There was a bartender there. He's definitely complicit. You know, this is his bar. So, you know, I pull a gun on him. He starts reaching for something. I blast him in the arm. I teleport next to him. He's still trying to reach for something. I blast him in the arm again, and I'm like, look, I'm gonna blow a hole in your head. Show us where this elevator is. He takes us downstairs, and he's like, okay, you know, I can only take you so far, and, you know, you'll have to take your helmets off. He was really insistent on us taking our helmets off, and I'm like, fuck, you know, no one's taking their helmets off. Are you kidding? We're here to blow shit up. We're not taking our helmets off. And so I'm like, I got the gun underneath his chin. Studs is, like, trying to communicate with this guy and, you know, try to work things out. And this guy just was pissing me off. He was complicit, you know. You're working with cultists, making zombies. It's just... So, I put a bullet in his head. So we start looking around the room. You know, we've got infrared visors in our power suits. We're looking around. And we find some, like, gas canisters in the wall. So he was trying to gas us, I guess. Good luck with that. I'm a fucking precog. And we find some, like, hollow space in the wall. So we have Mert's character, like use his telekinetic or whatever thing to make a hole in the wall, and we see, like, there's an elevator or something behind it, or something like that. And that's where we ended this session. So next time, I'm gonna put on the Doom soundtrack. We're gonna just fucking barge in there with guns and rocket launchers and explosives. We're gonna teleport around, and we're gonna kill everyone. There's no talking. There's no talking. Enough talk. Killing everybody. It's gonna be great. Anyways, so, for my family D&D, I did officially make the switch to Dungeon World, and it was a big success. It was a big success. I think everyone much prefers Dungeon World, which is what I thought. That's what I thought would happen. That's why I was debating so much when we first started. And, you know, they can say that they've played Dungeons & Dragons, but Dungeon World is where it's at. I'm actually using, I think I mentioned this, I'm using Worlds of Adventure, which is sort of a hack of Dungeon World, a little bit. It's a minute hack. It makes things even a little bit more simpler and modifies some of the character abilities and takes away... gosh, I don't even remember what it is in Dungeon World. I don't remember what it is, but it has drives instead of, like, alignment. I think it was alignment or some bullshit like that. And it takes away races as, like, a mechanical choice. Anybody can be any race. It doesn't change anything. It just makes the system better. I approved of it all around. They approve of Dungeon World. We had a lot of fun. I ran them through an old school Renaissance adventure called Tomb of the Serpent Kings, which is sort of like a beginner's teaching dungeon. And they were very timid for a while. Like, they ran out of the dungeon at one point without even, like, encountering anything, because they were just like... I think they remember them dying last time, and they were just like, we don't want to die, we don't want to die. So they ran out of the dungeon, they wasted a bunch of time trying all sorts of different lame tactics. But eventually they were like, screw it, let's go back in the dungeon and go through the dungeon. And they encountered a giant, like, stone golem that in this big arena, and they fought this big golem. I thought they were going to run away, but they decided to fight it. And I could have made this thing much more difficult. Like, that's a great thing about Dungeon World, is you can change the difficulty like that in an encounter very easily. But I had it go pretty light on them. It got a good few swipes on the Paladin. My mom playing the Paladin. She's trying to be a real tank and very defensive and defend everybody with her shield. And so it actually did help, because this thing definitely focused on her and was sort of batting her around a little bit. But my sister had the idea to tie this golem's legs with her rope, which was great. And they all were like I'm gonna shoot it in the eye, and then like I'm gonna dash to the side and stab it in the ribs with my sword, and my sister tying its legs with the rope, and they all rolled, and they all rolled very well, and I'm like, oh my, all right, you got an arrow through its eye, and you stab it through the ribs, or what would be its ribs, and because its legs are tied up with this rope, it trips and it falls. And they're like, I jump on it, and I keep stabbing it over and over. They're all just, like, wailing on this thing, and I'm like, all right, you know, I'll give it to you. You kill this thing. It suddenly stops moving. And I could have made it way more difficult than that, but I was like, I really want to encourage this creative combat style that they're going for, where they start getting descriptive with their attacks, and they think outside of the box by tying things' legs up and, you know, thinking about their opponent. So I really wanted to encourage it, so yeah, I had it be a little bit easier, and they killed it, and they were all very pleased with themselves. And I could talk much more about their trek through the dungeon, because, you know, this was just a starting segue into the Storm King's Thunder campaign, and so this dungeon was very different than what they're going to be doing, which is much more open world. But they haven't really had like an old school dungeon trek, and so I wanted to try that out. I think they enjoyed it for the most part. We did play for like 4 hours, which was great. And at the end, they found their goal, the reason they went into the dungeon. Some goblins had kidnapped a friend of theirs named Gulk. So I introduced them to the character of Gulk, and I was like, okay, some goblins kidnap Gulk for whatever reason. They go through this whole horrible dungeon to find this guy, and when they finally find him, he's like sitting at this table with a deck of cards, and he just says, "Hi." It's like, they were so confused, like, don't you want to be rescued? Aren't you here against your will? And he's like, well, yeah, I guess they kidnapped me. They're not so bad, though. And it's like, yeah, welcome to Gulk. Very perfect introduction. So he's like, all right, you know, the smell is kind of bad. I'll go with you. So they did rescue Gulk. But they expected to find him, like, beaten and, you know, tied up. And it's like, no. That's not how Gulk operates. Gulk doesn't get beaten ever. I don't know how recurring of a character I'll throw him in this campaign, but I wanted to introduce him, and I thought this was a great way to do it. So, yeah, they pretty much wiped out all the goblins, they rescued Gulk, and they saved the day. So, next time they'll get introduced to a much bigger threat, with the giants attacking, and they'll be thrust into this wide world of adventure. But Dungeon World is just so easy to run, it's so easy to play, it's just better. It's just better. At least for this group. There are groups that much prefer like the Pathfinder style, where they're all about min-max and character progression and, you know, all these combinations of multi-class and different prestige classes and, you know, all that kind of stuff. In which case, you know, Dungeon World does not cater to that style. But I think for a lot of people, I think a lot of people would prefer Dungeon World over D&D. Because Dungeon World is what you sort of expect D&D to be when you first imagine it. And so, yeah, this group definitely prefers it, so that's what we're sticking with. You know, I'm doing D&D campaigns, so it's still not, like, exactly Dungeon World as it's designed to be run. You know, it's meant to be much more open world and developed by the players and all that kind of stuff, but these people are not really ready for that. So I think this is a happy marriage of D&D pre-written campaigns with Dungeon World gameplay, and I think they're going to be happy. So, yeah, good stuff. I'm happy with it. I'd like to play Dungeon World again. But check out the O Death video tomorrow. Some good SCP stuff going on. You know, vote on the polls if you haven't. You know, the second poll is up. You could change something. Rock the vote. Live Q&A maybe towards the end of this week. And we got more Doom and more Final Fantasy XII, and that's about it. So, my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg, and I'll see you fine folks next week.